Hey guys, welcome back to another video. This is Bill Hanna, the financial controller. This video is based on a question that I received a few times from my viewers, which is, should I apply for a position that is higher than what I do right now? That's going to be a stretch, right? It's going to be a reach. Something that is higher either in title or maybe responsibilities, things that I haven't done before, or maybe I've done them before but not at the scale that is required for this job. So hopefully this video is going to give you enough material and ideas so you can make a good decision for yourself, right? And this is something coming from me as someone who sat at both sides of the table, as a hiring manager, now as a controller working in New York City, and also as a job seeker. Right, when throughout my career, I've done a few jumps that were uncomfortable for me to make and how they worked out for me. So we'll go through an actual example from my career where I made a jump from a manager to another role that is higher in responsibilities and pay, and how that worked out. And then I'm going to give you some pros and cons, right? So you can decide for yourself. We'll look at the pros and the cons, and that will give you material to think through for yourself and make a decision. And then I'll tell you some tips on if you decide to take that reach, if you're going to take that chance in yourself, right? 3 things that you can do to be confident in your decision and go and crush it in that new higher position with a higher pay, hopefully. So let's jump right into it. All right, so we're going back in a time machine to 2015 when I applied for a position. So at the time I was working as an accounting manager at a company. It was a large manufacturing company. I was the accounting manager. So that meant I was supporting the controller in accounts payable, overseeing accounts receivable, fixed assets, closing the books, preparing a reporting package, and all these things, right? Then I got a call from someone, a headhunter. So I'm used to getting, headhunter emails and calls about jobs. One of them stood out in particular because it was a company that was doing organic baby food. And at the time I was beginning to get into health and fitness. And so organic food got my attention. And for babies, so at the time I was also a new father, 2015, and the idea of giving just healthy organic food to kids was just made sense to me. So I looked at the job, and the job description here, I have it. I'm going to put it up on the screen. I looked at it and I was comfortable with about maybe 80% of the stuff that I was seeing on it, but I was unsure about 20% things that I haven't done before. So an example of these things as I go through the job description is, job title, accounting manager, which was fine. I was a manager at the time. Reports to CFO. So that was the first thing that got me uncomfortable, is that I will be reporting into a CFO, right? So my experience thus far was reporting into a controller, and reporting to a CFO sounded to me like I'm going to be acting as a controller, right? So that was the first tell that this is going to be sort of a stretch or a reach for me in terms of what I do, right? The second thing that jumped at me from the job description was managing inventory accounting. So it was raw packaging and finished good inventory accuracy, right? And although I touched on inventory and cost accounting during college and maybe some during real life experience, I wasn't ready at all to own, inventory accounting, right? So that's, I almost didn't apply for the job because of that line item here. And then the third one was supporting the CFO on annual budgeting and financial planning process, right? And similar to inventory with budgets, I have an idea, academically at least, and also maybe from real life, but very light experience. I'm not ready to support a CFO in creating a budget, because in my mind, if I'm going to support a CFO in creating a budget, a CFO is here. He's high level, right? They won't be doing much of the work themselves, right? So that means I'm going to be filling all the gap. I'll be doing all the work myself. And so that was daunting to me. But nonetheless, I applied for the job. And it was uncomfortable, right? So I had to spend maybe the first 3 to 6 months working in an uncomfortable environment where I was stretching myself. I had to sit with my predecessor, who was the person going out, leaving the company. And in many cases, sit in the room and listen to things that I'm either listening to for the first time, things that either I only studied in college, but I never worked with, relating to inventory and cost accounting, right? Or things that I know, but I'm just not good at, right? So it was uncomfortable in that sense. So I had to be taking a lot of detailed notes. I had to be researching online and figuring out all of these things on my own. And it worked out. So within about maybe 7-8 months into the role, I got promoted into a controller. And that was the first time I became a controller. It was a big day. As for me as a title, controller was a big deal, right? So it worked out in the end. But I want to give you some pros and cons in doing these kinds of things in your career so that you can think about these things for yourself and decide what you want to do here. So in terms of pros, right, the first one is that you'll be making substantial progress in your career progression by doing these kind of jumps, right? By reaching, by stretching, right? We tend to learn from failure more than learning from successes. And taking on these bigger responsibilities meant that I would fail many times. I would be, for example, working with inventory, and inventory doesn't tie out. Things are not working, so I have to be, on a daily basis, kind of failing and then learning from the failure. So you'll be making a big progress in your career by learning, by getting out of your comfort zone and failing and learning from these failures. The second pro is making large pay increases, right? So every time I made a jump like that, and I made these jumps about maybe 2 to 3 times in my career, it meant that I would jump by maybe 20-30% each time, right? So that's the second pro here, is that you're looking at larger pay increases by making these moves. And the third pro is that if you do these enough times in your career, maybe 2 to 3 times in your career, the growth is exponential. So the growth in pay, because also every time you get a 20%, you're getting a 20% on the previous 20 or 30%, right? So it's exponential in nature. And then also the growth is exponential because you're building on an increased amount of knowledge that went up quickly, right? This is sort of unnatural because you're increasing your knowledge, you're stretching quickly. What somebody would normally learn in maybe 3 years, you're absorbing in about 6 months, right? So it's an exponential increase in pay and in knowledge, right? So these are the 3 pros. Now, the cons in this case is, first one is performing under pressure. You're gonna have to be comfortable with the uncomfortable here, right? So if your personality is not built for that, maybe then you should take it easy and not do these kind of big stretches. Maybe make smaller stretches, but don't reach too high, right? If you're someone who, like me, is uncomfortable with someone who's comfortable with the uncomfortable, then you could be making these kinds of moves, right? Because I had to sit in rooms and listen to things that I'm not familiar with. I had to learn things on my own. I had to rely on myself to research online and figure things out, speak to my peer network and learn new things, right? But again, we talked about the pros, and the pros are just too high to ignore, right? So that's why I was okay with being uncomfortable. Now, the second con is the risk of being either fired or being put on a performance plan, right? Which is bad, but you gotta be willing or okay with the idea that this might happen, right? If you are the only earner in the family, like your spouse or your partner isn't earning, or you're solo and you don't have a partner in your life and you really depend so much on that salary, then maybe it's harder for you to risk being fired. But if you're solo, or if your spouse doesn't work and you have enough savings, maybe you have enough to risk here and the risk of being fired. But if there's a cushion, you can do it. Then you have the ability to do it. But if there's no cushion, no support financially, then it's hard. Plus, also, you gotta be okay mentally with the idea of being fired, because it puts you in a psychological place that is difficult, right? When you're either being put on a performance plan or being fired, it's a difficult things to happen, right? That's the second con here. So your personality has to be okay with the uncomfortable, and also you have to be okay with the risk of being fired, right? But we said the pros are too high to ignore, right? Okay, now, if you decide to do this, if you decide to apply for this position, here's what my advice is. The first one is that if you apply and you get selected, it means that the employer sees something in you, sees in your profile that you're qualified. And that should be the first tell that you should be fine, right? If the employer is selecting you, means your profile has the things that they are looking for, right? There's a shortage now, especially in accounting. There's a big shortage in qualified, competent accountants. And so a lot of the employers are willing to let go of some of the things that are in the job description. Like, they're not looking for 100% match. That's difficult to find. So they settle for 90% match, 80% match, right? So if you get selected, it's the first sign that you will be okay. The second thing is, during the interviewing process, you should shift your focus away from the lack of experience. So if I have a lack of experience in inventory, in this case, I shifted the focus away during the interviewing process from my lack of experience and brought the focus on how I'm going to manage that process, how I'm going to manage that. So I brought up the idea that academically, I'm an A+ student in cost accounting. I brought up the idea that I'm good at researching, that I will, I ask if there is a predecessor to sit with and understand the process. So I'll be learning. I'm a fast learner. I'll sit with them and understand and absorb the process quickly and take detailed notes and perform it, right? So shift the focus away. It's a mindset shift away from lack of experience and bring in what you'll be doing to manage this process, right? And then finally, my last tip is to prepare for battle. You're entering a battlefield here, right? And it's not gonna last forever. It's only a battlefield for about 3 to 6 months, right? And the payoff is big. We said exponential growth in terms of title, experience, and pay. But you're entering a battle. Don't make any mistake about that. You're entering a battle, and you will have to win. So it means that you'll be taking detailed notes. You'll be relying heavily on yourself to research things online and figure them out, right? Nowadays, with AI and the robustness of the data that you can find online, you can research anything and figure it out, from entering transactions into a system, from generating reports, from the accounting principles that apply to different areas of the business. Everything is searchable now, and it's easy to do. So that's my last tip, is to prepare for battle. So I hope this video was of real value to you, and if it was, go ahead and share it with others and hit the like button, because that's how you can help me grow my channel and help this video reach more viewers. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.